My wife told our financial advisor in front of me that she married me as an inheritance scheme to collect my family's trust fund after my father died. Jeffrey Holbrook's office overlooked the Hudson River from the 32nd floor of a Manhattan high-rise, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the water like an expensive painting. I sat in one of the leather chairs across from his mahogany desk, while my wife Catherine perched in the chair beside mine, her Chanel suit perfectly pressed and her diamond wedding band catching the afternoon light. We were there to discuss restructuring my father's trust fund, which I'd inherited 6 months earlier after his sudden death from a stroke. Jeffrey had been my family's wealth manager for 20 years, and he'd scheduled this meeting to review investment strategies and tax implications now that the trust was fully under my control. Catherine had insisted on attending, claiming she wanted to understand our financial future better, and I'd been grateful for her interest in our joint planning. Jeffrey pulled up spreadsheets on his computer screen and began walking us through the trust portfolio. Your father built this carefully over 40 years, Owen. The current value is approximately $8.3 million, diversified across equities, bonds, and real estate holdings. Now that the trust has transferred to you following the mandatory 6-month probate period, we need to discuss distribution strategies, tax optimization, and long-term wealth preservation. He turned the monitor toward us so we could see the detailed breakdown of assets. Catherine leaned forward to study the numbers, and I noticed her expression shift from polite interest to something harder, more calculating. She glanced at Jeffrey, then at me, and smiled in a way that made my stomach tighten with inexplicable dread. I should probably just tell you both the truth now since the money's finally available, and there's no point pretending anymore. Jeffrey's pen stopped moving on his notepad, and he looked at Catherine with polite confusion. I'm sorry, Mrs. Thorne. What truth are you referring to? Catherine crossed her legs and settled back in her chair like she was discussing weekend plans rather than dropping a bomb into our marriage. I married Owen specifically to inherit this trust fund after his father died. The whole relationship was designed to position me as the surviving spouse with access to the family wealth. I researched the Thorne family trust structure, identified Owen as the sole heir, engineered our meeting at that charity gala 3 years ago, and executed a plan to marry him before his father's health declined further. Richard Thorne's medical records indicated he had severe hypertension and refused proper treatment, so I calculated he had maybe 3 to 5 years left. Turned out I was right. He lasted 31 months after our wedding. Now the trust is released from probate. Owen controls the full amount, and as his wife I have legal claim to half of everything in a divorce. Mission accomplished. The words hit me like physical blows, each sentence destroying another piece of the life I thought I'd built. I sat frozen in my chair, unable to process what Catherine had just said with such casual cruelty. Jeffrey stared at her with his mouth slightly open, professional composure completely shattered. Mrs. Thorne, are you saying you entered into marriage with Mr. Thorne under fraudulent pretenses for the purpose of financial gain through inheritance and subsequent divorce? Catherine laughed and pulled out her phone. I'm saying exactly that. Want to see the timeline I created? I have spreadsheets tracking Richard's health decline, estate planning documents I obtained through various sources, and communications with my mother about strategy and timing. We've been planning this for 4 years, since before I even met Owen. She started scrolling through her phone while I sat paralyzed. My mother did the preliminary research, identified the Thorne family trust as a target, and I handled the execution. It's not even the first time we've done this, though it is our biggest score. The previous inheritance was only $2 million, and that husband was easier to manipulate than Owen turned out to be. Jeffrey found his voice, though it came out sharp and professionally angry. Mrs. Thorne, what you're describing is criminal fraud, conspiracy to commit theft by deception, and potential elder abuse if you had any contact with Richard Thorne that influenced his medical decisions or estate planning. This is not just grounds for divorce without settlement. This is grounds for criminal prosecution and civil damages far beyond the trust value. He reached for his phone. I need to call the firm's legal counsel immediately. Owen, don't say anything else. Catherine, I strongly advise you to stop talking and retain an attorney. Catherine shrugged and stood up from her chair. Whatever. I've already consulted with my own attorney about the legal exposure, and we've determined that proving intent is nearly impossible unless you have documentary evidence, which Owen doesn't. That's when the story took a dark turn. Full story is linked below or on my channel.